What is going on, everybody? It's Matt Marchese, also known as Islanders Daily, your home from everything from the four-time Stanley Cup champions, New York Islanders. And on today's episode, training camp has just started for the New York Islanders. It was day number 1 of training camp. There's a lot of talk about for training camp and the line combinations and everything else in between and who was showing out for training camp. And then we're going to give some updates all around the Islanders as well as the NHL, just to talk some things through and kind of understand what's going on in the NHL grand scheme of things with the season starting up real soon. So to start things off, we're going to be talking about training camp. In training camp, the Islanders were split into two groups for, usually as it always is, the blue group and the white group. And for the blue group, these were the line combinations for today. It was Drouin, Horvat, Shabanov, Duclair, Pajot, Holmstrom, Foudy, Ritchie, Gauthier, Vermayev, Romano, and Jeffries on the forward line. And then for defensively, it was Romanov, D'Angelo, George and Boquist, Aitchison and Bear, Day, McWard, and Sorokin and Hogberg were the goalies for this group. So we kind of see Patrick Waugh staying true to what he said on what he plans for the line combinations to be this season, or, at least to start off the season with Drouin, Horvat, Shabanov, Duclair, Pajot, and Holmstrom. And then we see, the other lines that aren't exactly going to be the NHL lines in Foudy, Ritchie, Gauthier, Vermayev, Romano, and Jeffries. And then defensively as well, we got Romanov, D'Angelo, obviously going to be in line. The interesting one here for me, though, is Isaiah George and Adam Boquist on a defensive pairing together, as these are two guys who are battling kind of for that final role, the seventh defenseman role on the New York Islanders. Now, I do believe either one of them could easily slot in to that sixth defenseman role for the Islanders, and it's definitely a possibility. So be sure to watch those final four defensemen in Schaefer, Boquist, Mayfield, and George, and see who's able to win out that battle to be a starting defenseman on the New York Islanders. And then obviously Sorokin and Hogberg, goalies right there. So yeah, it was an exciting day for there, and there was a lot of talk going on with the blue group for the Islanders training camp, such as Anthony Duclair seemed to be moving well, a lot better than he was last season after he suffered that groin injury. I know we just talked about it recently, all the injury, how ripped off the groin. Sounds freaking hardcore, man. That's hardcore. I'm surprised he was actually even able to come back to that, and we know everything that transpired, and I've talked about it on this channel multiple times. But yeah, he looked to be moving well, Duclair, today, which is definitely a good sign. Still early, so he's still definitely a little, rusty around the edges. But he was moving well, and he went bar down on Hogberg today in training camp, which is definitely good. Not good for the goalies. You never want to have somebody go bar down on you. But Duclair was moving well, which is definitely a good sign. And then the biggest shock of the blue group was how well Luca Romano was performing for the New York Islanders in this training camp. And this was his first taste of the training camp, as he was just drafted this past season in the third round by the New York Islanders. And if Romano's able to keep this up, he could easily be, a player in the NHL in the future. Obviously never, not anytime soon. But definitely, he's an interesting player to keep an eye on now. He was very smart on the rush today, apparently. Obviously I can't go to training camp and watch it, so I'm only able to look at highlights and talk about what other people say. From Stefan Rosner, who was there, he was very smart off the rush, which is definitely a good thing to have. He was very fast. He was very fast, Luke Romano, and everybody, that was a big thing about him when he was in the OHL, was his speed, and clearly the speed is still there. He was very fast today in training camp. And his shot was surprisingly stronger than most thought. Everybody never thought Luca Romano to have a super strong shot. But I think he did bulk up a little in the offseason. And coming into this training camp, he had a good shot. So that's definitely a good sign. And just a little bit about Luca Romano is in the OHL last year, in 67 games played, he had 25 goals and 26 assists for 51 points, which is definitely a solid OHL season for Luca Romano. And yeah, so I'm excited. He was definitely an underrated player who I think we drafted. And I don't think a lot of people even knew, how good he would have been performing at this training camp, which is definitely a positive sign going forward, seeing how well Luca Romano was playing. And then obviously, I just talked about it, Stefan Rosner also said he made a great pass to find Jeffries at the back post for an easy goal. And Stefan Rosner uses this word of he's a player. He's a player, and that's strong words coming, that already Luca Romano is already getting his name out there as somebody for us Islander fans to keep an eye on for the future. as our prospect pool continues to improve with Darsh taking over. This is definitely a good sign. Definitely a good sign, and I'm really excited to see it. And yeah, that's pretty much all the updates for the Blue Group. It was just a solid all around practice for those guys. Sorokin, solid. That's all we need from him. And everybody else was solid. But yeah, Luca Romano was the big standout for the Blue Group. And then in the White Group, we had, for our lineups, we had Lee Barzal Palmieri, Heineman Suzuki Siplikov, Gatcombe McLean Beckman, Larson Highmore Polton. Those were our forwards. Again, we're staying true to what he said he was going to do. And then on defense, we had Schaefer and Mayfield, Warren and Mitchell, Odulius and Polkinen, and then our goalies were David Riddick and Tristan Lennox. So, yeah, we again see him stay true. I really like, we kind of had a feeling Schaefer would be paired with Scott Mayfield, and that's what happened. Schaefer was paired with Scott Mayfield, and Schaefer was great again. He was really good today. Schaefer did everything the coaches asked of him. We saw Patrick Watt talking to him privately. So, yeah, that's definitely a good sign going forward once more, is that our young players are performing well with these NHL players. Now, obviously, the rookies were in camp before the real players came, so they had a little more legs on them, just being able to play more. But we know the NHL players were practicing as well. So it's definitely good, positive sign to see our younger guys keeping up with these guys. But for the White Group, there really wasn't that much news compared to the other groups that we saw. The Blue Group, it was just more of a solid practice between them, except Emil Heineman. Emil Heineman looked absolutely great today for the New York Islanders at training camp, which is a great sign. I know Montreal fans were upset at losing him when he was traded here, and he was having a great year last year until he suffered that crazy, ridiculous injury where he was hit by the car in Utah. So yeah, he's like, it's hard to explain what Heineman is. He's a fourth line player to a third line player who can be more than that, if you know what I'm saying. He's going to be that fourth line player, but he can elevate his game to when it needs to be elevated. And he had a great shot. I'd be the first to admit I knew who Emil Heineman was. I don't follow the Canadians religiously, so I don't really follow their players and all the points except when they're being talked about. But as I was going back watching Heineman's games and his videos on YouTube about that player Heineman is, I'm just more excited to see him on the Islanders and a fully healthy Heineman without being hit by that car. It's exciting, and I can't wait to see Heineman on the Islanders, and I think he's going to be a big addition for us on that fourth line as somebody who can score goals but also play a strong defensive game, which is what the Islanders need. That is what the Islanders need. And as day one ended, the standouts for, the team was obviously Schaefer looked really good. Heineman, Luca Romano, those guys we talked about. Duclair was skating well. I really liked what I saw from Jonathan Drouin in his first night as well, just watching highlights from the training camp again. I'm not there to see the whole thing, which is really unfortunate. But I can just go off what other people are saying. I really thought Drouin was good. Sorokin was solid. Everybody was kind of solid. It was just a solid day to get their legs back on them. And we saw why he said he's not going to do as much conditioning. He stayed true to that. Obviously, there was some, back and forth, or as he likes to call them, whammies, where the players skate, red line, blue line, back and forth. And they said it was tough, but they didn't really do much of that today. That, like they said, they focused more on structure. And tomorrow we're going to be seeing more of the power play and everything. And the Islanders also have a scrimmage tomorrow. It's going to be 2 10-minute periods, I believe, between the blue and white group, which should be fun to see. And now to go into some of our updates, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Jonathan Drouin, who came here, and he talked a lot to the media today, Jonathan Drouin, and he said a big reason he signed was he talked to Anthony Beauvillier and Derek Brassard before coming here, and they said it was, amazing, and he's excited to play back with Duclair. He's known him since he was 7 years old, so pretty crazy that both of those guys, so young, 7 years old, to still be playing and making the NHL together. That's just kind of an awesome story. That's an awesome story, and yeah, it's really cool. And Drouin, again, talked more about signing with the Islanders. Here's his quote. He says, "Just the players, the mix of young players and the veterans we have here. Darsh had a big part in it. Just a phone call with him and knowing his background with Tampa Bay was really huge." So that's a good sign for Islanders fans. GM Matthew Darsh making strong first impressions, which is definitely a good sign and good to have. And he also said getting to skate with Horvat right away. It's exciting. It's stuff you want to hear as a player. So obviously he's excited, Drouin. He's excited that he earned the trust already without being here for a while to get those first line minutes with Bo Horvat. Now, of course, he's going to have to prove it and work hard, but Drouin, he's been a player who works hard his whole career. Again, he's dealt with injuries and everything, but when he's on his game, he is on his game, Jonathan Drouin. And then he also had a word about Matthew Schaefer, and this is the exact quote. I really like this, as it kind of shows leader tendencies in the Islanders, and everybody's kind of taking Matthew Schaefer, the young guy, under their wing, which is really cool. And he says, this is his quote. He says, to have that Schaefer kid, that's encouraging for us too. He's going to be a hell of a defenseman. And just positive reinforcement right away by Jonathan Drouin, talking how much they're excited to have Matthew Schaefer and how much they'll do for him. And that's a good sign. You know, the Islanders are a team. That's what it sounds like. The Islanders are a team. And I know they've always been a team, and people wanted us to get away from that, you know, golf club mentality. But it's always good to have players stick up for other players and just talk this positively about them. And finally, our final Jonathan Drouin update is we all know he is wearing number 29 this year, which was Brock Nelson's number. But he gave us a little insight on that, and this is what he says. He called Brock Nelson and asked him about number 29 and if he could wear it. And Nelson, as we know, definitely agreed because Drouin is wearing number 29 for the Islanders this year. And this is the quote Drouin says here. When you've spent over 10 years in some place, the fan base obviously accepts you. They love you, and he was a leader on this team. I just wanted to make sure it was okay with him. So, yeah, just really, good stuff by Jonathan Drouin today. Just kind of going out there and talking. And, he's being a media guy. He's letting us know in the information, and it's definitely a good sign. And I'm sure Islander fans, I'm sure some were upset about him wearing 29 with Brock Nelson leaving so soon. I didn't care. It's just a number at the end of the day. And it was not going to be retired by the New York Islanders despite all the great things Brock Nelson has done for us. So I didn't really mind him wearing 29. I know some Islanders did, but it was good to see that he called Brock Nelson and made sure he can wear 29. And that shows the character that Jonathan Drouin is, which is definitely an awesome thing. Now, we're going to be going into our injury updates and, and it's Pierre Engvall and Semyon Varlamov. Apparently, Pierre Engvall had off-season surgery on his hip, which is not good, and he won't be ready for, I think it is 3 to 4 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks. It's one of those, and that essentially does it for Pierre Engvall. He will not be playing on the New York Islanders this year without being here at the training camp for 2 to 3 weeks. Preseason hockey starts this Sunday. I think it's safe to assume, my apologies, I'm fumbling over my words, that Pierre Engvall will not play a game for the New York Islanders this year. I assume he'll probably be in the press box or even in the AHL. So, not good for Pierre Engvall. Unfortunate bounce for him. I didn't think he was going to make the team originally, but now with the surgery and not being able to play, that does it for Pierre Engvall. He will not be playing for the Islanders this year unless somehow some crazy things happen where he finds his way on the roster, but I just don't see that happening. And then Semyon Varlamov, another troublesome thing. I know we talked about it yesterday. He's just skating, but he's not ready yet. And again, it's just tough. If David Riddick goes out there and proves that he's the guy going forward, Varlamov's going to have a tough time with the injuries. And with how long Varlamov's been out, it's tough to come just straight back into that and play hockey. And it's definitely nervous for Varlamov because Varlamov is one of my favorite goalies that the Islanders have ever had. He came here and he did great things for us. And it's sad to say, but I don't know if Varlamov will really play for the Islanders this year as well. It seems to be David Riddick's net unless Hogberg's able to impress. But speaking of David Riddick real quick, he has an awesome goalie setup. If you guys have not seen it, be sure to look at them. Man, it is an awesome set of equipment David Riddick is wearing. But besides that, it's definitely, kind of upsetting. And I just want to talk a little bit now about some NHL updates, and the Minnesota Wild are not happy that news got leaked, and it's embarrassing to them that he didn't accept such a monster offer, and that is Kirill Kaprizov we're talking about. I know we talked about him on this channel as well, and this is from The Athletic. Now, who knows how true all this stuff is? It's media, it's journalism, there's lies in all place everywhere. But it definitely is an embarrassing thing that Kaprizov turned that down. And I really do think Kaprizov won't be on the Wild come next season. Who knows? Maybe even as early as this season. Obviously, I want him to be on the Islanders with all the Russians, but that's a strong ask. That is a strong ask. And I don't know if we have this stuff to give the Wild for Kaprizov, and I don't know if I want to give the Wild the stuff we have for Kaprizov. And then next is Quinn Hughes. This is an interesting one. Most people around the league think Quinn Hughes will re-sign with, or don't think Quinn Hughes will re-sign with Vancouver, and he'll test free agency. And I want to talk about this because obviously we know the three brothers, Jack Hughes, Luke Hughes, Quinn Hughes, have talked about wanting to play with each other. And if they all want to go play with each other in New Jersey, that's going to be kind of frustrating for the New York Islanders going forward, having to deal with all three Hughes brothers. I mean, Quinn Hughes and Jack Hughes are superstars. The jury is still out on Luke Hughes, as he is the youngest one of the three. But yeah, if a team is able to get all three of them, that is crazy. That is crazy, and they would be a very good team. And yeah, that's a scary thing, especially if the Devils are able to get it. So let's hope Jack Hughes and Luke Hughes decide not to stay with the Devils and they all go to a different team, hopefully somewhere out west where the Islanders won't have to deal with them in the time going forward. And then finally, the salary cap. Some people believe it could go from $95 million as much as $170 million in the next 9 years. Now, that is a long time, but the NHL really does deserve to, make more money and be able to pay these players more and get, bigger deals, because you look at the MLB, Juan Soto's almost making $1 billion a year. That is insane. The NBA, you're making great money. The NFL, you're making great money. And the NHL, you're not making that money that the other sports are making. So hopefully it does continue to grow and we see more people wanting to get into the game and, be fans. And if you are new to the sport and haven't watched anything, you stumbled across this video, become an Islanders fan. Just become an Islanders fan, and we'll take you in. We'll take you in. And yeah, that's pretty much all the news and updates for today. And this was a longer episode about training camp. I'm going to keep breaking down training camp going forward, and then once preseason starts, I'm going to do game reviews and some pre-game reviews about the game. So I'm excited for the season to start so we can really start talking about games and breaking down what happened. But as always, I hope you all enjoyed listening, and let's go Islanders.